the door. At least we're not spazzing in front of the camera.
Where is that?
All right. 3, 2.
Good evening, Barbados. Good evening to our viewers. Welcome to another edition of The People's House. Here I am today. I am Karina Goodridge, and I'm your host. And I'm here with the lovely ladies from the Democratic Labour Party, and they are representing the Democratic League of Women. Are you excited, ladies, to be here today?
Yes.
Yes, you are. Great. First, I must say that the Democratic League of Women, we are an arm of the Democratic Labour Party, and we are focused on enriching the lives of women, whether it is socially, politically, culturally, or economically. And we want to inspire inclusion. So an early happy Women's Day to the lovely women out there. We appreciate you and we love you. And our topic for today will be women in politics and also inspire inclusion. Women want to be heard. They want to feel as though they are appreciated and valued, and they want to feel as though they belong. And most of all, that they are included and they are not left behind. So let me introduce first Stacia.
Nice to be here.
Welcome to the People's House.
Thank you very much.
She's a familiar face. You've seen her face before hosting the People's House, so now we get to hear more from her. And we have the lovely Tyra Trotman. You are familiar with her, beautiful young lady, the representative of you're the chairman of the Young Democrats, and it's doing lovely. We're moving forward. And we have the Madam, great. She's such an inspiration, Felicia Dujon.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and then we have Berta De Pisa, a familiar face in Barbados, who is also a president of the Democratic Labour Party and a wonderful inspiration to us also.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening. So thank you all for coming. I appreciate you taking your time out to, give your opinion and your voice today to the public. And my first question to you today is, how do you think that we can improve on inspiring women right now in the political arena in Barbados? I'll let Stacia go first.
Probably want to go first. Well, from my, being involved and seeing what's happening in Barbados and being aware of what's going on, particularly with women, most recently in Barbados, I think there are some spaces that have evolved and have been created for women, particularly there are few brands and few spaces on digital media that provide women for training, but those are more socially or economically or financially, and I haven't really seen that much space being provided for women in Barbados who might not be aligned with the current administration. And I think young women are hungry to learn, to hear, to see, and to be open to training and opportunities that can enrich their lives. Yes. I know a lot of women have a lot of passion about what's going on in Barbados, and they would like to harness it and use it in a way that benefits women around them. And I think there's definitely more room for growth in that space. I know the Democratic League of Women has a new chair in Melissa Savory Gittins, who's unfortunately not here today, but it is definitely within the ambit of the league to improve and create a space, a modern space for Barbadian young women like Tyra, who's doing such an amazing job, to evolve and to grow, and for all of us to learn from those who've gone before us and who are still with us, and to really enrich the space of politics in Barbados.
That's lovely, and I'm glad you mentioned the chairman, Melissa Savory Gittins. I just want us to give a wave of the camera to her. She's not able to be with us today, but we're calling you out. And Verna, my question to you is, how would you say that you have inspired inclusion for women, being like a leader of a party, a woman in politics, and how do you see yourself being used as a vessel to actually inspire new women coming into the party? How? Just tell us how today.
Well, it's really hard to evaluate yourself.
Yes.
I think that others would have to give testimony to how they viewed me and the role that I played. I know for me that there were several role models before me. We have a tendency in Barbados to have an eye to those who are up front. So we do have a higher than the international average of women involved in face-to-face politics. But
Yes.
the Democratic Labour Party has a very, very rich tradition of women who have gone on before us. Some who were front runners like Dame Maisie, and then there are others like Marjorie Lashley and Yvonne Foster.
Wow.
You know,
Great women.
Carmita Fraser.
Oh,
who
yes.
made their impact nationally.
To give a lot of
without
contribution.
having been in the house itself, like Dame Maisie was. But
Yes.
they are credited with the majority of the social infrastructure and legislation that has come through the Democratic Labour Party when it is in government.
Yes.
For instance, the domestic violence legislation.
Oh, yes.
If you check back the records of the party, you will see that that was an initiative coming through from the Democratic League of Women.
Yes.
So women within the political space is much, much more than those who stand for office in any role, but those who get national recognition.
That's right.
And I think those of us who get there
Yes.
have to make sure that we conduct ourselves in a manner that the next generation coming after can speak well of you.
Oh,
I-
yes.
I don't want to speak well of myself. I don't think that.
Oh,
that
you've
should
hit
be
the nail on the
testimony to be born.
Yes.
I can laud those who made it possible for me to step forward. And hopefully it also created a space for others to come through.
Yes.
What we must be cautious about doing though is that we're not clamoring over each other to get where we want to.
Yes.
As women, we have to get up the ladder and
Yes.
also have the confidence to reach back and assist others up. And then those who are coming up must not be, like,
Well, that was
trapped in
beautifully
bar-
said.
Yes.
Beautifully said, and what she's saying basically is that as a woman, she wants to set a great example. And you made a significant point that the Democratic Labour Party has made significant contributions when it comes to the legislation. One that was great to Barbadians is the maternity leave. Women, you know, didn't have the opportunity before to get maternity leave. And here we are, a branch of women with ideas and men that come together and decide, hey, let's give our women maternity leave. And also even in Barbados at one point of time, I believe it was before the 1950s, women weren't even allowed to vote. So here we are, we can vote, we can come out, our voices are heard. Now I want to turn to Tyra and I want to ask you this question because I want the viewers who are watching to know, how are you going to inspire the young ladies out there? How do you feel now as a chairwoman? How do you feel as a chairwoman? How do you feel that you are being perceived? And also, what plans do you have for young women to make them feel more included?
Well, for me personally, being a young woman under the age of 30 years old, I would say that my hope is to show young women out there that they do have a voice, they can be respected, and they can be given opportunities to showcase their talents, to raise their voices, and to be strong on a platform. I remember before I got into politics, I used to host this, I guess it was something like a talk show, but it was a live on Instagram where I invited a bunch of, you know, strong young entrepreneurs, and all of them were women. And the reason why I did that is because when I looked around me and I started to see the direction that young females are headed, I didn't really like it in the sense that there's this culture right now going on. I don't know if it's the music or if it's the films or whatever it is, but there seems to be this city girl mentality, and young people, you know what I'm talking about. City girl meaning like, you know, you gotta get a Birkin bag from a man to feel, you know, valued or important. So I call it high class prostitution. That's basically what it is. And I started to see that and I didn't like it. So what I decided to do was do the live. It was called Blue Let's Talk, where, you know, I would bring on, like I said, entrepreneurs, bosses, and ask them, how did you get there? And if you were able to show other young women how to get there, what would you tell them? And so I kind of brought that on to my politics as well, in the sense that traditionally politics was male dominated traditionally, but you started to see females, you know, come together and come forward and stuff like that. And not only females, but feminine females. So I wanted to show people that just because you're a politician or you're an attorney at law does not necessarily mean that you cannot be, you know, nice. You can't look nice. You can't be sexy. You can't be feminine. You can't, you know, wear nails or do your hair and dress up nicely. You can be feminine and still be strong. I think a lot of the time, as a woman, when you're assertive, you're seen a certain type of way. You're seen as like aggressive or angry. When we are bossy, when in reality you're just assertive and you're passionate and confident and you're doing the same things that your male counterparts are doing, but it's just perceived differently because you're female. And so I want to be an example for other young women out there to show them that, you know, you can look good and be strong too. You can be a politician and look good. You can be pretty and smart. You don't have to choose one, right? And do not limit yourself or subject yourself to just being like a male object or a sexual object. Use your brain and don't be afraid to be smart.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
100%. You have to believe in yourself, definitely. And you have to put yourself out there to, you know, as a woman, equip yourself. Make sure that you learn things. Women can't be just viewed as persons who just cook and wash and stay in the kitchen. Whatever your grandparents was telling you about cooking and washing, those days are gone. We women are stepping out. We want to be heard, we want to be noticed, and we want equity. And I turn now to Felicia Dujan. And I want to ask you, if you encounter a young, you talk a lot about children, so if you encounter a young woman who's saying, hey, I suffer with issues concerning self-worth, how would you inspire them?
I think there is a number. And again, thank you for being here. And we all look very beautiful this evening. I have to tell, I have to tell the audience how beautiful they are in person here as well. And it's a lot of dynamics at play. We have to look at what do we mean about representation. Representation is very important in terms of how persons see themselves. And I'd like to agree for our comrade here, that when you see yourself being a leader of the party, there are people that look up to you, like myself. And it's the representation of seeing someone that looks like you. They may not have all your features or characteristics, but it tells you, I can get there. There's a space that is open. And like you said, the generation that have paved the way. And I was, before we had the conversation, I was speaking with her. I said, well, you know, you have to write an autobiography at some point because it is important for us to say our stories and the journeys that we went through. And so I think what Tyra is doing, what we are doing, sharing those stories to show women that we have, some of us may have very similar backgrounds. Our journeys have not been easy, especially in politics of all things. But at the same time, we understand that we are there to help each other. But what is very important is that the society must assist women where it is needed, because we have to have the policies. So even if women make progress in academia, in academics, in the professional life, women are still restricted in various entities, whether it's in terms of violence against them in public spaces, domestic, and that is why it was very important to pass those legislations, because though persons may believe that, well, there's a woman, she's professional, she has done all the wonderful things,
but then she goes home and be abused, or she goes to the bus stop or the van stand, and there, people are hurtling at her. Or even in the workspace where sexual harassment is real.
Yes.
And so passing those legislations is very important, that we have to protect women in all spaces. And I think it's very important that we now, as a party, need to start thinking about enacting the legislation for a national gender policy, because we need one. We need one that will guide the way that gender policies are being framed, how it can directly influence the lives of persons. So when we speak, we're not only speaking about persons that we can, in our circles, in our professional life, but the average woman. And that doesn't exclude women that like to cook. Because we do have to cook. We have to survive. We have to survive. We have to survive, not just for your husband, but I believe that women should be allowed to do whatever they choose to do, as long as it doesn't harm anyone. If you want to be a mother, be a great mom. If you want to be a cook, be a great cook. And nobody's right. And if you want to be both, you do that. But don't. I think we have to stop.
Don't limit yourself to.
Yes,
to,
and
to
that
anything.
idea that if you're a feminist, that you shouldn't cook for your husband. So how you
They're not mutually exclusive.
how you not gonna cook for your children?
Advocating for the men too.
Yes.
Very good.
They have to eat.
Of gender equality
Yes,
is not to
Yes.
leave the men behind.
That's
we
right.
don't. We don't.
Looking
we
for
don't.
equality.
That's right. That
Right.
there is parity.
Yes,
We're
yes.
really striving
And
for.
diversity.
Yes. So it's important that we do not create certain stereotypes
Right.
that have been used
Yes.
to discriminate against women and disfranchise women. So we want to encourage women to be the best in whatever you do. If you feel that you can go to work and still come home and cook for your family, cook for them. Because that's what makes, and I think some women cook because it's part of what it's love. And we shouldn't look at it at anything else. And I think we need to remove ourselves that we can do all of it, but we need the support from the society to show us that, yes, you can achieve that. But I just wanted to add one more part of that, because I think education is very important in terms of how women are enabled to do what is required in society. So yes, we do have free education, but access to education is still very important in terms of women development, how they build on their skills. Because sometimes women may work certain hours, certain shifts, and they may not have the time to do, extra classes or get to where they are professionally in terms of education. So I think the society really needs to look at those areas and provide those kinds of educational support and opportunities for women to enhance the skills that they're in, including parental skills as well, because that is all part of education. So all of these kinds of areas are very, very important and critical within our society.
That's good.
As well.
What I got, you mentioned education. So as we're sitting here, we're thinking, we're talking, we're expressing ourselves. I want the women who are beside me now to kind of think up of programs or ideas that you can think of right now while Barbados is watching and people all around the world. And tell me, what do you think is a dominant area that needs much address right now in Barbados? She mentioned education.
I think education.
It could be poverty. So I need the ideas from you guys to tell
parenting,
Barbados.
which I think is really important. Our young
Yes.
people are coming up in a very busy world, a very digital world, and parents are busy, balancing life, doing work and providing for kids, and some things just go unseen, and really someone being able to provide a platform to help parents help their kids, I think is instrumental. I think training for young girls is really important as well. They're being confronted with social media, which is a whole other dynamic that I certainly didn't have when I was that age. But it's something that's really important to them. They have access to it by a touch of a button. And parenting and having parenting classes, I think, will make a phenomenal difference in Barbados. A platform and a space to help parents address their concerns with their children of different ages, I think is really pivotal, because our lives are moving so quickly. Our children are growing up so quickly. They have access to things I wouldn't have had access to when I was a child, and those are things that our society needs to be really mindful of, and it's okay to want and need help.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with needing help and asking for training, and that is something that I think across Barbados is needed, whether you be in your 20s and a parent or a mother, whether you be in your 40s and be a mother. That's an all-around thing that I think has been missing in our society for just a little bit and has affected us very horribly in Barbados.
For me, I would just like to say, and I heard Verla mention it when she said, equality and equity, because at the end of the day, it's like, all right, so we are expected to be good mothers if we have children, but then we're also expected to deliver when it comes to the work environment. So I think if we have some policies put in place that recognizes, and we saw it then during COVID, that recognizes remote work, allowing women to have the opportunity to, even after, past the maternity leave period, we don't have to, it's like, after you have a child, you don't become, I don't know, incapable of doing certain things, that you don't have a disability, you become a mother. So I think if businesses and companies take a look at that and say, well, if it is that they can work remotely, I think most office jobs, and we saw it then during COVID, most offices, once you have a good strong internet connection, and you have the technologies of the computer and stuff like that, telephone, I think you can work from home. So give women the environment where they can flourish and show you that they can do both things. It's not you have to choose one or the other. And I think for young women especially, because we've been hearing complaints about the fact that the fertility rate and stuff like that is going down, women are not having a lot of children. And I think it is because, especially for young women, we are being forced in a way to choose, especially as career women, we are being forced to choose between the two. It's either I'm going to be a career woman and I'm going to pursue my career strongly and heavily, and with that, children come into play maybe in your 30s, like 32, 33, 35. Whereas then you have other women who, they're not really dead strong on the career. They more like to seek family life, and they would have their children younger. So I think if we can create an environment, an atmosphere that caters to the woman that wants to do both, like you want to be a career woman, but at the same time, you still want a child, because at the end of the day, who are you leaving your legacy to, right? I think that's the position that I am in right now, because I don't have any children of my own. But when I sit and I think about, do I want to have a child? Those are some things that go through my mind, like right now, is it a good time? It might slow me down, stuff like that. So I think if we cater to the woman that wants to do both by providing remote work opportunities, I think you might get a little spike in the fertility rate.
She said the word cater, right? But I want to stick a pin there. I want to know, do you think that the Barbados Labour Party is properly catering to the rights and needs of the women here in Barbados?
Well,
let's be honest for our viewers.
All right, I want the viewers to answer that for themselves.
And I want us to answer that too.
Of what is going on now and what they had before, because whilst Tyra is concerned about the woman whose job can accommodate remote work, the majority of our female workers are actually at the bottom of the chain. They are the gas station workers, they are the domestics, they are the maids in offices, they are clerks. Theirs is not a space that you can work remotely. So really and truly, by doing that, we're still just looking at a niche. But if we found ways to enrich the employment experience, starting of course with a living wage, and that is something that, and this is part of the critique of the government, to answer your question,
thank you.
The minimum wage commission actually was set up under the last Democratic Labour Party administration.
Cheers to the Democratic Labour Party once again.
But I think that the focus under this administration is different, because whenever you set a minimum wage as a fixture, you will also affect cost of living. And I don't think that was appreciated. What we need to have is more of a peg, so that we can reach a living wage, that you can have the experience that we hear our grandparents talk about, that your penny pension got the house, your penny pension bought the land, whereas those seem to be unattainable for a very large majority of Barbadians today,
women, yes.
because the policies that we are seeing exhibited, whilst there may be some lip service towards the social aspect of society, we're finding that even in that space, for example, the hot button topic now of housing, even in that space, we're finding that what is being created could never be achieved by those persons who are at the minimum wage. So we need to find room, and it is okay to speak about home ownership, but if the reality of home ownership is actually outside of the reach of the average worker, and at that level we really are seeing a high representation of females, then the policy of the Democratic Labour Party of rent to own is actually a better one.
So much better.
So it's great sound bites.
Yes.
But when it comes down to touching and concerning lives, actual people, I think we need to be looking at that band that is the minimum wage, and seeing how it is that we can improve their living experience.
Yeah, and I tend to agree with that as well, because I was having a conversation with a young lady, and she was telling me that she works in a particular place, and she went for a loan at a credit union, and she was refused the loan because they didn't think that she would be able to make it. But she's paying rent at a certain amount, and we hear that all the time. And these are the kinds of issues, those kind of bread and butter issues that women are concerned about. How will I take care of my family? How will I be able to afford? But most importantly, I think there's a point in time, and I think we have to recognize that as women, there's a period of time where we are very useful to society, where we're able to have children for the society, we're able to take care of them, we're able to work. But once it gets to retirement age, where our usefulness tends to not expire, then what happens to women? And I think that's another question that we have to ask. How do we care for the caretakers within society? Because what we're seeing, a lot of older generation of females, some of them are being abandoned at the hospital, some of them cannot afford the basic necessities. So how do we treat? So we also have to look at not only in our primitive, in our age where we are older, young, and we vibrant, and we have, but we do have an aging problem as well. But the issue is, how do we treat our women at that stage? Because when we get to that stage, we can't work. We definitely can't buy a house or get a mortgage. So I think so I think what we tend to speak about the burden of care and what happens there, because the majority of women are also not only taking care of their children, but also their parents. And so that's an additional burden. I think these are the kinds of concerns and conversations that we should have, not only in terms of housing, in terms of getting the basic necessities. So even when we retire, are we thinking about that? How many women are thinking, for the next few years, how am I going to retire? With the government, and we've had that conversation about the NIS. And what is going to happen in terms of retirement. So these are the kinds of questions I think that is very important that we have to ask, because when we do retire, what is going to happen to us as women? Will our children take care of us? Because some of us do hope that our children will come back and take care of us. Or would it be that we'll have to be at the mercies of some uncaring government?
We want a government that
uncaring government. So these are the kinds of questions that we need to ask. And when we speak about equality and equity, it also transcends when we are in a vulnerable state within society, when we are no longer useful within the society that really needs us at the formative stages in our lives. So, and I think these are the kinds of questions that we're seeing. And what are the policies? That's why I'm advocating for a national gender policy, because that will cover those kinds of issues, because it would cover you as a young person. So what are your needs as a young woman in society? What are your needs as a mother? What are your needs as a professional? But also, what are your needs as a retiree? And how are the society, how will they assist you when you can't no longer work?
Yes.
Would they still supply with food items? Would they be able to pay your bills? Because healthcare
for women.
and these are, I think these are,
the elderly Felicia.
These are,
and I'm glad you brought this
these
point
are
up.
real issues that we have to talk about when it comes to the healthcare, and of course reproductive health of women.
Right.
We can't even, like, even with the healthcare system, there's no mammogram machine. So that again speaks about how we view women's and women's health, which is a very serious
making it a priority, ultimate priority.
And I would just like to add to that, since we're speaking policy and legislation,
that's my favorite thing. Policy and legislation. Listen carefully, viewers.
The protection orders, right, which we've already mentioned in a way under the Domestic Violence Act. I think we need to go a step further, because there are situations where women would come to me in the capacity of me being an attorney at law, and they would say, well, I have this ex-boyfriend who can't seem to move on. He's stalking me, he's humbling me, he's always, harass me, he threatens me and stuff like that. But when you go before the magistrate, there's a section in there that states that they have to live together, they have to be a part of the household.
That actually was that
But
was
they
removed
still-
under the last
The
administration.
magistrate still would not enforce that.
So you need to draw the amended
Right, so
legislation
there's
to their
something we need to do
attention.
about that, because I don't think it's right, and I don't know if people are aware of that amendment, and that's why it's still being enforced the way it is. But if it is that there is an amendment, then we need to do more in terms of advocating for it, and definitely educating persons out there, because if the magistrate themselves don't even know that that amendment exists, imagine where we're going wrong. So I think greater protection needs to be afforded to women out there when we're walking the streets, when we're coming home from work late at night. Not everyone has the luxury of jumping in their own private car and driving home. Some persons have to catch public transportation, have to walk through dark alleys. I remember a few years ago, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, there was a serial killer on the loose that was attacking women in a certain area after a certain time, and was stabbing them and killing them. So I think more needs to be done to protect women in terms of legislation, and we need not limit it just to domestic situations, because abuse and hurt and trauma can come from anywhere. And
I for one would like them to extend the maternity leave for women too, because sometimes women have a lot of complications after pregnancies, and you have to think about the needs of women. And that's why I appreciate the Democratic League of Women, because we are wise women here. We're thinking about what could hinder the lives of women, and we want women to be valued. I know that the Barbados Labour Party has a league, and I'm not sure how active it is, but we want you to keep on following us and listening to this wisdom that these women are giving you today, because what you're sharing here is what people are going through daily. People are going through these things. They're feeling the burn. There are women who are still living in great poverty. When I see it on the news, I see women asking for help. I keep telling Barbados, we have to move away from this handout behavior. We want women to be empowered. We have to empower women. Felicia, I want you to tell the viewers, if you have to empower a woman today to be a part of the Democratic Labour Party, how would you get that done?
I think there are a number of...
where do you pull your strengths from? Give them your strengths.
I just want to tell the viewers that we're in such a beautiful place, but at the same time, you can see a lot of activity happening. But I think one of the most remarkable things about the Democratic Labour Party is the support of our male colleagues.
Right.
I think when you speak about a party, and there's a term that is used, violence against women in politics, which is something that the UN Women is looking at in terms of how women feel comfortable and safe in the political space, because we know in the political space it could be very dangerous in various ways. I mean, how women are attacked on the platform, the things that are said about women. And I think what is very important about us from the Democratic Labour Party is to ensure that we provide support for all women, even those from the Barbados Labour Party, because we understand what it is like to be in the public space and be a woman in politics, because it's not a very welcoming space. And so we always have to show support and show, in some cases, we have to show that we support all women in all political spaces.
You said it's not a very welcoming space.
It's not a welcoming.
Explain to the viewers what you mean by that.
When
Don't
I say
leave it loose.
when I say welcoming, traditionally women, there are certain spaces that women were not welcome. So in the early centuries, you saw women were not welcome in politics, religion, and then you see a little hesitancy even in the sciences. And so it was very important when women started emerging in those spaces and allow them to. So it was very, of course, it's not a comfortable space because men dominated those spaces. So one of the things that we can talk about is equal pay for equal rights or equal work. And also now there's a big conversation about women's work or what we call housework. There's a financial aspect to housework such that if a woman goes for a divorce, the judge can now calculate how much housework this lady has done and been able to, you know, give her an equal contribution based upon housework, which is something that we don't discuss. So yes, there's value in cooking.
Because I have to point out
there are women that are chefs.
the Democratic Labour Party again was leading on that in relation to the Family Law Act, which is now decades old. And under the Family Law Act, which was, I believe, in the Erskine-Sandiford era that it came through, those intangibles that a woman almost invariably provide, although we are finding that men now also have those soft skills within a family setting, but those are actually within our legislation to be considered by a judge whenever we reach the point of dissolving a marriage.
It's very important. It's very important to see that. But to your question, why the Democratic Labour Party? We have strong males in this party. And what do I mean by strong supporting males? They allow you to be comfortable in your space. And they allow you, they're always supporting. And a very good example is that our comrade Steve is right here with us. And it shows always very supportive. The kinds of dedication that our male colleagues are always there to support us. And the reason why I said that we need to support all women in all political spaces is that the mere fact that even if a woman is from the Barbados Labour Party, we still have to support them. Even if there's somebody that does not support our party, but they're women, we have to support them because we understand as women the journeys that we go through, and we have to be a representation of that. We have to be a representation that we are our brother's keeper, we are our sister's keepers, and we do what is in the best interest of every single Barbadian woman that is coming up.
Stick a pen there. How can we promote solidarity amongst women? I tell you why I asked that question. Most times when people think about women, they think that women are jealous of each other, they're catty, they're going to fight each other. So how do we promote solidarity among women and that peace that you're talking about of being a sister to each other?
That was so easy. Because it really is how you conduct yourself, right? It is a reality. It may not be a majority, but it is a reality that there is. We're almost pitted against each other for space, and we find it within the political arena as well, and sometimes even within your own party, that you will have that jostling for position and the pushing and the shoving. It is incumbent upon each one of us to behave ourselves in such a way that we are not obstructing others from progressing.
Say that again in the camera.
Absolutely. We need to learn from the mistakes of the past and stop putting stumbling blocks in the way of each other. When women do that to each other, we invite the criticism and the open speculation from the males, because whilst for them the jostling for position is
Competitive.
it is not just competitive, but it is almost expected when it comes to the females now doing
Now
the
we'll
same
fight
thing.
each other.
It has a very different connotation. It is read entirely differently, and it is wholly damaging. Wholly damaging
It
to
is.
the movement to improve women.
It gets you nowhere. I want to hear
Agreed.
Stacey on this. Yes.
Well, I think it's really important to always be supportive,
Yes.
and whether it is somebody else being up front and center and you being in the background, be that to the best that you can be to ensure that that woman looks good and she understands that you're supporting her and you're letting her light shine, and she will do the same for you.
Yes.
And I think as much as we can do that, it helps to bring that kind of light to the space, and that very much needed warmth, because politics can be a very hard space, a very critical space as well. And I think in realistic terms, building relationships with people is a basic, and showing that you care.
Right. I think we need to start seeing each other as threats. And as my sisters have said, support each other, because oftentimes, I don't know why, but there are some females who feel threatened by the mere presence of other females, and because of that, the spirit of jealousy, it comes out, and when that spirit takes over, there are persons who do a lot of nasty, deceitful and wicked things, and they would smile in your face, and then behind your back they would try to cut your throat, and it's like, what have I done to you? Because it's a reality. What have I done to you? So I think we need to step away from that.
It does happen.
And I think we need to be more supportive, as they've said, be more real, start with this two-faced thing, and be your sister's
And support each
I just
other.
want to add that one is, Tyra's going to get real passionate. I had to. And I think one of the amazing things about being with the Democratic Labour Party is that support unit. And there's a lot of mentorship from the older generation. When you come in, there are certain things that you may not understand about the party, so you may not understand the entire history. And there's always a woman somewhere. There is always, I can say that, because the men understand it, they get it. They have their, they have a special relationship where they can mentor each other. And I think in the Democratic Labour Party we have that, where there's always a woman, an older woman in the corridors somewhere, always waiting to give guidance. And I think that is something that is very touching, because it's very important for young women. Mentorship is very important.
Right.
We speak about all this kinds of discord, but people rarely think about the kind of guidance and support that women give. There's a very interesting term in philosophy that speaks about the ethics of care, and what it says is that women tend to build relationships. We tend to build bonds with each other, such that it's very difficult when we feel betrayed, because we build that bond. While men are very more principled. This is a principle, this is how you do things, and they deal with it. So there are different ways of looking at it. And I think what is very important, that we need to develop mentorship programs for women, whether it's for young girls going through schools, whether it's in the work environment, because sometimes a woman enters a new work environment and everybody's, okay, I'm doing my work, you do. Who's guiding those women? Who is being the mentor? And I think being in the Democratic Labour Party, we have that kind of structure. And it's, in some cases, it's informal, but at some point, when you need that guidance, that elder is always there. As I said before, in the corridors, somewhere they are there to provide. They will find you and they find you. And I think that is one of the things when we were talking about young women and how we provide the guidance to them. How do we inspire women? You inspire someone by being there for that individual, by providing the guidance. And mentorship doesn't mean that you just, you're mentoring somebody for a job, but also ensuring that when you're not there, that the person has the best capabilities, that you're providing the guidance. And I think that is something that we need a lot more in politics. And I think you touched on that as well.
I agree.
Because when we're
I
not
won't stick up in
here,
there again. I agree with that. I let you finish.
Yeah.
But even if an elder is not there, right? I want women to focus on personal development too, because we're looking at empowerment also. So sometimes all of these things start in the mind. It starts on how in the mind on how you see women or how you value yourself in particularly too.
Yes.
Because I could look at a woman and I could admire her because
Yes.
I'm confident in myself.
yourself,
So
correct.
for me, I'm okay. I would
Correct.
say, I don't need to jealous her shoes. I love her shoes, but I love mine better, or I love mine just as much. But then you might find somebody that might look at the shoes and say, oh, I want a pair, then I don't have a pair. Then you have to know, look, I am confident in me. I'm confident
Correct.
in what I have.
Self-worth.
I love me. So self-worth, as you're saying, is key in that. Because sometimes you might not always have a woman there to be a voice in your head.
Everybody has different strengths.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that should be appreciated too.
yes.
And being able to say, oh, well, Verla has that strength and that
Yes.
knowledge and that expertise.
take away from
and
that.
learn from her and
Learn from
glean
that.
from her. And Felicia has that expertise in ethics and she has the passion, right? And so we always have to play what everybody has as strengths and not demean anybody because they feel as though they're less than.
It's almost like singing a song. One body hold a harmony. Who's the great? You hold a key, you hold a low key, I hold a high key.
Yes.
And then we create a
Come
beautiful
together
song.
and
Yes.
a harmony, right?
And then we get a harmony. And
So
a
I just
sweet
want to
melody.
take 1 minute. We have extremely beautiful environment, extreme lovely decor tonight, and it's all
yes.
brought to you by Sugar Bay Hotel.
Sugar Bay
and
Hotel.
they
Thank you so much.
were so wonderful to invite us into their space,
We are
and
grateful.
we love this space, and we hope to come back.
Come back. And we will come back. We're going to make an extra effort to come back here. I want to ask Verla now to speak on leadership. Speak a little bit more concerning leadership, and I don't want to just focus on the challenges in leadership. You can touch on it a bit, but what I want you to do is to say you're inspiring me, Felicia, Tyra, even Stacia. And we want to be a political leader someday. Not that we're running away, not to run away, but if we want to aspire to be a political leader, give us some hope.
Okay, I'll start at the end and then go to the beginning. As you know, I'm immediate past president of the Democratic Labour Party. My getting to that point was a stunner and a shock even to me because of the manner in which it happened. But the reality is that there was a build up to it. I would go so far as to say that I was born into the Democratic Labour Party because my family is a very political family, and my personal involvement has been from my teen.
Well, that's fascinating. I didn't even know that. So see?
Yes.
Good.
And coming all the way through, talking about the leadership positions
Yeah.
with the Young Democrats. I'm a past president of the Young Democrats. I've been perennial on executive and general council from my 20s coming up. But in between that, you're also, because the Democratic Labour Party as a political party is not really earning,
Yes.
sweeping the auditorium, sharpening pencils and packing bags for annual conference, all of that
Yes.
had to be done. What it does is create relationships
Create relationships.
within
That's
the
very
party,
important.
with the
And the community
young
too.
set that were my contemporaries and with the older ones. They could see what my capacity was. So when I got the call first to be a senator, I was stunned because in my mind there were several other persons ahead of me in that contemplation for me. But I readily said yes. I was the least amongst the apostles, down at the end of the table next to the Clerk of Parliament, but truthfully, next to the Clerk of Parliament is where you want to be, because that's the learning. They didn't just do the research, they talked
Yes.
with you and shared their learning. So the information on, and then I was the only attorney in the Senate on the government side at the time. So there was a sharp learning curve, but it was clearly setting me up for something else. So in 2018 then, when I guess all stars aligned, a few of them were shooting stars, but the opportunity was presented to me, if you can call it an opportunity, because really and truly an ultimatum was presented to me in 2018. That's just a fact. If you speak to the players, that's the climate that we were in
But would
in
you say it was a passion of
2018.
yours to lead? To say, well, I have
It was a
achieved this
goal of mine
It was a
to
goal,
lead.
right.
When I was still at school, there actually was an article written about me in the Nation, and my intention to be the first female prime minister of Barbados. Of course, the exuberance of youth rubs against the realities of life. Okay, but after 2018, whenever there was an election in 2019, 2020, 2021, to see how my comrades felt about me was humbling. It was one thing to be called up for service, but then it is absolutely another one to see the foot soldiers line up behind you. And why I say it is humbling is because the party is not a cohesive unit in terms of everybody thinks the same and everybody is the same or come from the same social strata. So to have that cross appeal within the party was very humbling. The challenges were significant. It, without argument, was the lowest point in the party's history. So the challenge to bring the party up and to bring everyone along with you was, look at my hair, you can see. if you, I love it. I absolutely love it. But if you see the pictures before and after, 3 years was all it took. Okay, so it really is. The challenges were the in-house challenges, and I will be very circumspect because I recognize that this is an outside broadcast, but the inside challenges were more than I expected them to be. You didn't expect that rub, and I think that as a party we need to work on that cohesiveness.
Prepare for the inevitable.
We need to learn how to follow. We need to learn how to lead. We need to do both. And yes, it is practice. Practice will make perfect. But hopefully we've learned the lessons of our past, and that we can do better going forward. I think the party, whilst its base has slipped, when you evaluate what the country has achieved under a Democratic Labour Party administration at each installment, it is to be lauded. And I will go further, and this is going all the way back to one of your original questions in terms of the critique of the present administration. I will go further that the reach, the Barbados Labour Party, the reach of the achievements of the Democratic Labour Party are far wider and deeper because it reaches to the average person. And I think if we keep that focus, that regardless, we do have to play on the international market. I don't think we have to run around the world in the way that is being done right now. We have to play in the regional space. I think though that we also have to not neglect, and I put the double negative on purpose, we have to not neglect our at-home issues. And that really is the strength of the Democratic Labour Party.
Drum have to beat first.
Look, all of the drums can beat together in the same harmony that we were speaking about. We just have to find that balance. But I think that the legacy of the Democratic Labour Party over time has always been to cater
Yes.
for
The average
society.
man,
We always cater
Right.
for the masses.
So,
We're going to soon wrap up.
on
so I don't want to
leadership,
cut you short.
Yeah,
But I
just
thank
one
you
last
so much.
point.
Yes, one last point quickly
One,
for
yes,
the camera.
the leadership
Yes.
is critical and important, especially as a female leader.
Okay.
There were moments when you had to be firm and tough, and then there are other moments where your softer skills
Yes.
come into
Yes.
play. And I will be very
So there
blunt
has to be that balance.
and also the opposing imagery of the leader, the female leader on the other side and the female leader on this side
But
was
don't you-
stark.
I want
and
Miss Vernon
that
to
is
know
important.
You don't have to worry about that. This Democratic Labour Party, we are catering to the needs of women. We are not going to leave you at home wondering
Regardless.
what's next.
Yeah.
We're not going to abandon what.
But I love the fact
We are
that
here.
Verla several
And we
times
are ready.
tonight reminded the public what the Democratic Labour Party has done, because
I'm
somewhere
grateful for that,
along
yes.
the line it has been lost. I mean, you always hear about the 10 glorious
Lost and
years.
stolen.
They're trying to always talk about the 10 glorious years, but they do not speak about the things that Verla mentioned tonight. So I'm very glad you've done that. And actually, me myself
Thank
as a
you.
young person coming into the party not too long ago, I would love to sit down and have like further chats about things like that, so that when I go out there and I advocate, I can remind Barbadians of
There
the
are
things
actually
that
books
we
that
have
were
done.
We are
published.
going to come back again. We're going to have more forums like this where
so much
we're going to have,
conversation
trust
that
me,
we
we
can
don't
see.
even want to give away all the nuggets right now. So I want you all, before we wrap up, say before our time is out, so just, it's going to be International Women's Day. You know the heart.
Oh, Lord.
You know that we're supporting the campaign team. So just give a heart to show the love to the women out there. We love you.
Yes.
We love you, Barbados.
I wore my
We love
purple
each other
for
in
it.
the Democratic
Yes.
Labour Party. We're going to promote more love, and we are going to inspire inclusion for women. You don't have to feel left out. Thank you for watching. Thank you for
Women's
viewing
Day.
with us, and have a great evening.
Good night.
Good night.